Hi, everybody. My name is Linda Abraham. I'm the founder and president of INSEAD. I've been an MBA admissions consultant for over 20 years. I'm also the co-founder of the Association of International Graduate Admissions Consultants and its first president. I've been quoted in the Wall Street Journal, U.S. News, Business Week, Poets and Quants, and many other top publications in connection with MBA admissions. And today we're going to discuss how to get accepted to INSEAD. I want to, again, thank you for coming. I want to encourage you, if you haven't already done so, to download, and I would recommend printing out, that's certainly not necessary, the Get Accepted to INSEAD worksheet that's in the handout section of your control panel, your dashboard. I think it'll make it easier for you to follow the webinar and just simply get more value out of it. So there's no, just go ahead and do that if you haven't done so already. I also want to make sure that you can A, hear me, and B, you know how to raise your hands in the webinar. Raise your hands means you click on the hand icon on your control panel or dashboard. And what I'd like you to do is raise your hand if you are interested in attending INSEAD and earning your MBA in order to enhance your career. Raise your hand if you are interested in attending INSEAD, earning your MBA to enhance your career. How many of you would agree with that statement? If so, please click on that hand icon. Well, the hands are flying up. Good. Good. Okay, well, most of you are here for the right reason. Good. We're well over 60%. Wonderful. You're here for the right reason because, of course, that's what this exercise is all about. A couple of questions I'd like to ask just in order to get to know my audience a little bit better before we start. I'd like to know where you're located geographically. City and state in the United States, city and country if you're outside the United States. Amsterdam. Okay, welcome, Tom. Anybody else? I'm in Los Angeles, California. Evansville, Indiana. LA. Oh, a neighbor. Hi there. Vienna, Austria. Singapore, Delhi, India. Pune, India. Johannesburg, South Africa. I just ran into a friend who came back from Johannesburg or from South Africa earlier this week. I know I'm mispronouncing this. Gurgaon, New Delhi, Colombia, Tashkent, wow, New York, Mumbai, Saudi, Spain, New Jersey, Tunisia. Wonderful. Toronto. Anybody from South? We had Colombia. We had South Africa. I think we have all the major. Anybody from Australia? I'm missing Australia, but probably the most underpopulated continent. New Delhi. Okay, welcome to all from near and far. The next question is actually a poll that's going to appear on your screen. Now that I know where you're at geographically, I'd like to know where you're at in terms of your application process. You're applying for, the options are, you're applying for September 2018 intake, for January 2019 intake, or you're planning to apply for a later intake. And share the results with you. 17% are applying for the September 2018 intake. 56% are applying for January 2019, and 27% are planning to apply for later intakes. Okay, well, that is interesting. I did expect the plurality to be the January 2019 intake. I'm very impressed with how many of you are actually planning ahead for later intakes. So that's great. Okay, welcome one and all, including those applying for the September 2018 intake. The last question, or the next question, I shouldn't say the last one for today, but the next question for now, is how committed are you to applying to INSEAD? Definitely, maybe, or doubt it, but my mom so wants me to try. So which category best identifies you? With 85% having voted, you're a great audience. Thank you. 69% are definitely committed to INSEAD, and 29% are maybe, and 2% doubt it. Okay, that's actually pretty much what I anticipated. Maybe a little bit more committed than I thought, but that's wonderful. All right, and then the last thing before we really get started on the actual content is I understand that sometimes we do have a special offer today, and rather than just say I have a special offer and have you sitting on pins and needles wondering what that offer is, I'm going to tell you so that you won't be anxious and you'll be able to concentrate on the substance of the webinar. We are offering $300 off our MBA application packages to attendees at this webinar. Coupon code SAVE300, and it ends February 14th. So you have exactly 1 week to think about it, talk to whoever you have to talk to. If you want, talk to one of our consultants before you sign up and decide if this is what you want. Okay? Now, what the plan for the webinar is to go through the 4 keys to acceptance, the 4 key strategy steps that would apply to really any MBA program, and apply them to INSEAD in terms of tactics and the 2017-18 INSEAD application. I'm also, in the course of the webinar, going to issue some warnings about mistakes I see applicants making frequently. And the first one's going to come now. You're not going to get into INSEAD by putting on some makeup. It really doesn't cover the wrinkles, trust me. Magic won't do it. Even spin is not going to be enough. You need to submit a substantive application. And by substance, I mean competitive qualifications and an effective presentation of those qualifications. In other words, you really need to demonstrate fit with INSEAD. Your overriding aim is to show that you belong at INSEAD, like a hand belongs in a glove. Now, let's dive in a little bit deeper. I'm sure you've been thinking about this, and I've been thinking about this, but I'd like to hear from you first. How do you intend to show you belong at INSEAD? Much of the presentation is applicable to the MBA program, but there are some elements of the MBA that are not going to be addressed. Okay. If I mispronounce names, please excuse me. I apologize. Marcel says, show international background, past job, and academic performance. Very good. Anita says, great GMAT score. Miraj says, international experience. Results, experience. Mirabid. Leadership, ability to contribute. Very good, Victoria. International motivation. Very good, Yash. By being culturally adaptive. Excellent, Nancy. Leadership potential, very good. All right, you're all hitting on great GMAT score. That certainly never hurt anybody. Clear goals, very good, Kavish. Excellent point. All right, here's a good one. Know about the culture of INSEAD and show how I have been actively developing to be a part of the culture. Very good, All right, you're all hitting on elements. And what I'm going to try and show you and what the application provides is a comprehensive approach, right? This is something we work constantly with our clients. It's not just one element. It's not just the GMAT above 720 or the great GMAT score. And it's not just about leadership potential. And it's not even just about international background. It's everything all together. So on some level, my question was a little bit unfair because I'm going to spend the next 45 minutes or so telling you what should be in your INSEAD application, and you basically had a small little box to fill out and answer the question. But we're going to boil it down to 4 strategic elements, and each of those elements needs to be in your application. The first of those elements is you need to demonstrate you can do the work and thrive at INSEAD. One of INSEAD's stated criteria is academic capacity. And somehow you have to show that you can handle the curriculum at INSEAD. And most people say it's like drinking from a fire hose. You need to be able to handle it in terms of your academic preparedness, your intellectual curiosity, and your communication skills. Now, the easiest way to show this preparedness is through your undergraduate transcript and your test score. Many of you mentioned the GMAT. You want to be at or above the averages for accepted students, ideally for both grades and test scores. If not, how can you convince INSEAD to accept you with, let's say, average grades or below average grades, since the nature of averages means that people are accepted with below average grades. Poets and Quants estimates that the average GPA on the US 4.0 scale is approximately a 3.5. If you are concerned that your undergrad record is not up to snuff for INSEAD, then I'd suggest you listen to the podcast I did, except.com/137 on 5 A's for your low GPA. By the way, we'll be sending out all these URLs via email. So if you're attending this live, you don't have to be writing them down madly. But I would recommend that you listen to that. If your quant skills are weak, if you're the proverbial poet, but your grades are good, consider something like MBAmath.com, quant courses at a local college. You could take statistics for business, calculus if you have the prerequisites, economics, accounting, MOOCs, massive open online courses are also an option. But you really want to demonstrate that you are improving those quant skills. A high GMAT score can definitely mitigate a low GPA because it can show that you have the raw talent. You still would need some way to show that you have the self-discipline to perform in an academic environment. For INSEAD, you want to be at the 70th percentile, ideally in both quant and verbal, whether your grades are good or below average. INSEAD looks at the separate scores very closely, more than the overall total. So and it weighs them separately. If you're considerably below average on either the verbal or the quant, or considerably below that 70th percentile mark, either on verbal or quant, do consider a retake. And if you're not sure whether to retake or not, again, we have some resources for you, specifically this webinar. It is recorded, so you can listen to it. The GMAT, some of you are going to be wondering, what about the GRE? Does INSEAD take the GRE? It takes it on a very limited basis and clearly and strongly prefers the GMAT. In fact, INSEAD only accepts the GRE for applicants from countries where the GMAT test is not offered. It also will accept it for prospective students looking to follow the dual degree path. And when it does, it wants to see a score in the 85th percentile for quantitative and verbal sections of the GRE, or it's highly recommended, let's put it that way. So your academic preparedness, your academic capacity in INSEAD's terms is generally evident in transcripts and test scores, the objective elements of the application. You can show it with supplemental coursework, and sometimes even through your work experience if it's very demanding intellectually or quantitatively, but somehow, some way, you need to show you can do the work effectively and not struggle with either basic math or communications. That's the first strategic key. Second strategic key, have a clear, realistic idea why you want an MBA from INSEAD and how do you intend to use it. Now, why do you think this is important in your application? To assess right fit, it is an element in showing fit. You're right, Unwit. Placement, yes, they want to know that they'll be able to place you. That's correct. The college is looking for prospective alumni. Yes, you're right. Anybody else want to respond? It shows you can be focused. Yes, to have solid. It's only a one-year MBA, so to get the best in a shorter span. I think most of you are saying what I want, but not in the words I want. To prove we will raise their metrics of salary after passing the program, shows a defined plan, good. Shows that you are driven and goal-oriented, good. To have a macro vision in life and career. Why INSEAD over other institutes? That's very good, Abe. Good. All right. The main reason, there's two reasons it's important in your application. One, the fairly superficial reason, is that they ask for it. They're going to look at it. They're going to consider it. So if you don't have that, or you have something that doesn't make sense, it's going to hurt your chances of admission. But the more important reason is they want you to be employed when you finish the program. And if you don't have a goal that they can help you achieve, or you don't have a goal at all, then you're not going to be very happy when you finish. And somebody mentioned you're going to hurt their metrics. It's not even only the salary metrics, it's the employed at graduation metrics. The program, as somebody said, is very short. You have to know what you want because recruiting starts immediately in a one-year program. So you can't be going there and saying, I'm going to figure it out. You have to have a clear idea of what you want to do when you get out in order to know what you want to do when you're there. And if you don't have that, you're going to be floundering. Now, let's go into this a little bit more. The question that INSEAD asks is discuss your short and long-term aspirations, career aspirations with an MBA from INSEAD. It's a very short question. I don't give you a lot of room, but you're going to have to succinctly answer it. In terms of the short-term MBA goal, it should be function plus industry. What do you want to do, and in what industry do you want to do it? If geographic location is an element for you, then you can also include that, but it's certainly not a mandatory part of the definition. And that's really how you need to define your short-term goal for INSEAD. What about the long-term goal, which INSEAD also asks for? Well, that can be fuzzier, and it may also include a greater vision, perhaps some societal good that's motivating you. That's fine. Whatever it is, the short-term goal should logically lead to long-term goal. If you're attempting to change both industry and function, perhaps your short-term goal will be to change one, and the long-term goal will reflect the second part of that change. Although I got to tell you, INSEAD is very proud of the fact that many of its graduates change both career function and industry, and some change function, industry, and location. They're very proud of that stat. The school's main motivation, which I indicated earlier, is that it wants to know it can help you succeed. They want to be able to connect the dots between where you've been and what you've done to what you want to do via INSEAD's program, career strength, and extracurricular activities. So the first key, academic preparedness. The second key, clear goal, past, future, right? The third goal is show that you share INSEAD's value and meet its criteria. That's kind of where you're at now. And a little bit of past and a little bit of future, kind of bridges the time continuum. Now, INSEAD's motto is the business school for the world. They don't make that motto up to be cute. It reflects what's important to them. And indeed, they are the only business school with 3 campuses in 3 different areas of the world, France, Singapore, and Abu Dhabi. They have a 2-language requirement upon entrance and a 3-language requirement upon graduation. And INSEAD also has alliances with Wharton in the US and Tsinghua University in China and the Sorbonne in France. So this international motivation or appetite is absolutely critical to INSEAD. It is probably the school with the strongest, if you will, focus on multicultural fluency, adaptability, and again, this global appetite. So what does INSEAD value in their own words? Ability to contribute, academic capacity, which we already covered, international motivation, which I also covered, though I think I might go back to it, and leadership potential. Let's talk now more about this international motivation. Most INSEAD students have studied or worked outside their home countries. And you must show that you are comfortable interacting in diverse communities and are committed to pursuing a global career. That's whether you've stayed in your home country or you've traveled a lot. Now, if you haven't spent much time outside your home country, then you can still demonstrate multicultural fluency, either through personal travel, that would be if you hadn't worked outside your home country, working in a multinational corporation and interacting with people from around the world, learning foreign languages and just being able to demonstrate an interest in global affairs, different cultures, or interacting with different cultures within your own home country. We are living in an increasingly heterogeneous world where people do migrate a lot, and many more and more countries have multi-ethnic societies. So if you are comfortable in that environment, be able to show that through your application. The other element that, again, per INSEAD's admissions criteria is leadership potential. They want applicants who can demonstrate their potential as leaders. And the key word here is demonstrate. They don't want to guess about it. It has to be demonstrated. And that can be, you can reflect or demonstrate that potential in terms of the number of people reporting to you, the financial impact of your projects and initiatives, the size of the assets you manage, or the deals you've worked on. Somewhere or sometime, when the buck has stopped with you, when you've taken responsibility for an outcome, you've shown leadership. And you want to highlight those experiences throughout your application, your resume, if possible, have your recommenders comment on them. You need to be prepared to discuss them in the interviews and, of course, in the essays, which we'll get to in a minute. You can have leadership either at work or in volunteer capacities, but INSEAD does seem to prefer seeing it on the job. Now, here's for one of my warnings. There's a big difference between spitting back INSEAD's criteria, right? If you just spit back those terms, it's not really what they want. What they want is to see those qualities, right? There's a big difference between mouthing platitudes, spitting back websites, and showing that you actually share the values. The former, the spit back, it's just putting on makeup. And you know what? It really isn't pretty. Spamming them with phrases from their website or mantra-like repetition of business school for the world, leadership potential, or international motivation, global appetite, that really will not cut it. What you need to do is provide examples in your essays, in the job descriptions, the bullet points in your resumes, the letters of recommendations, your responses to interview questions. In other words, throughout your application, you need to show that you both have what INSEAD is looking for and can benefit from what INSEAD offers. To me, acceptance to INSEAD is really about leadership that most business schools are looking for and that multicultural fluency. And everything in your application must also demonstrate these qualities. Now, I'd like you, this is for yourself, you can take the back of the worksheet that you hopefully printed out at the beginning or just a piece of paper, write down for yourselves a couple of ways in which you would demonstrate either multicultural fluency or leadership, a couple of experiences. This is for you, where you demonstrate those qualities, those critical qualities. And we're going to get to ability to contribute in a minute. Okay? So this is for yourselves. Just write it down. And when you have examples, you don't have to spit back phrases at all because you're showing, you're demonstrating, you're proving that you have the qualities. You're making it much more concrete and credible. Another warning, if you focus on rankings or brand, you'll obscure this fit aspect of admissions, as well as contribute to you focusing on the wrong things. Yes, I know, and I know this was true as of until last week when Financial Times came out with its new rankings. INSEAD is now number 2 in Financial Times. It was number 1. It is still number 2 in Forbes for return on investments. It's number 2 in Business Week's international ranking, and number 4 in PitchBook's ranking of schools for entrepreneurship. But telling them about their ranking just means you're telling them what they already know and telling them nothing about you. The result? You blend in, you bore. You want to stand out in a positive way. You want to show that you have the distinctive experience and perspective to contribute to INSEAD's community. However, the rankings do imply one thing of importance. INSEAD has lots of applicants, and it's choosy, and it can afford to be choosy. Its popularity and prominence lead to my last key point and the last to do for your application, and the reason behind the last of INSEAD's stated 4 criteria, which actually very much overlaps with my 4 keys. Demonstrate you'll be able to contribute to the INSEAD community and ultimately make the school proud. In INSEAD's words, more important than the length of your experience is the quality of your accomplishments. Those accomplishments are the contributions you've made in the past. And so you need to show them that you are a person of achievement, accomplishment, and impact. Now, what I'd like you to do in the question window is to tell me, or us, we're all here together, when have you made an impact? And I'll comment on some of the examples that you gave. Again, in the question window, can you tell me some of the times that you made an impact? You helped build a startup. Okay. Can you give me a few more details about that? Kastub, a few more details. How did you grow it to X dollars in sales? What was your role? But that's a good start. Anybody else? Wonderful. Created a cybersecurity case competition to recruit university students, hired 6 out of 40 people. Okay, you could add details to that. How many people participated in the competition? What were the prizes? How much money did you raise for the prizes? Help reduce the Indo-US power project cost by $300 million. Excellent. Built an online literary journey, running it for 4 years now. Okay, Siddharth, that's good. How many subscribers do you have? How much revenue do you raise, if any, in subscriptions? Doubled KPIs of company in half a year. Excellent, Mirobed. Managed launch readiness and portfolio with 18 or $1 billion US dollars in the APA, the Asian Pacific Australia region. Good. Help create 100 jobs through Rural Market Connect. Excellent. Led the cultural committee at my workplace, planned events throughout the year, which eventually reduced turnover in my department. This is good, but it could be much stronger if you gave some numbers. How many people were on the committee? How many people attended the events? How much greater was the participation under your leadership than it had been previously? Okay? Those kinds of numbers add enormously to the power of the achievements that you're relating. Financial leader of a transaction to build a wastewater treatment plant that will treat the wastewater produced by 7 million people. Very good, Daniel. What was the dollar amount of that transaction? Okay, what was the value of it? That would, again, add 4,000 visitors per week. Excellent, Siddharth. Are you getting published every week without interruption? Very good. Got a deal worth 35 million subcutaneously, getting deal from sister companies, which was worth another 20. Very good. Leader of the team that got the permission to export in my company. How many people were on the team? How much exports were involved? How did you grow that team or grow the exports? Carlos, that will add enormously to what you just outlined there. It has potential. Discovered a key mechanism of how anxiety and stress lead to the development of epilepsy and contributed to the development of medicine. Chuck, that's very good. I would like to know more about your role without it getting too technical. Were you on a team that did that, or did you work with others to publish a paper about it? You might want to provide some stats as to the number of people suffering from epilepsy. Okay, very good. Built on student and freelancing experience during my master's studies in the U.S. Oh, that was the journal you mentioned before. Got it. Okay. All right, I'm going to go on. You folks have a lot to be proud of, and you're presenting it quite well overall. But I think I've given you some suggestions as to how you can do it even better. Okay? So the point here is that the specifics of your achievements, especially if you can quantify results, will add enormously to both the distinctiveness of your achievements and their credibility and power. Those are the events and experiences you want to highlight throughout your application. So again, I think INSEAD, well, a word about work experience, okay, before we go on to the next point I was about to make. Work experience is obviously critical when applying to MBA programs. And the question is, do you have the experience quantitatively and qualitatively that will allow you to contribute to your class and team at INSEAD? Now, INSEAD has INSEAD students have an average of 5 years of work experience, pretty consistently. Maybe sometimes INSEAD's trended a little higher, but that's been pretty consistent. So the number is easily, obviously there's millions upon millions of people who have 5 years of full-time work experience. So quality is really going to be determinative. Quality work experience at INSEAD shows the leadership, impact, right? That's what we were discussing a minute ago. International appetite and perspective that INSEAD values, and above average progression on the job. So when you get an unusual amount of responsibility for somebody at your stage in your career with approximately your amount of work experience, that's very, very impressive. Or if you have an unusual amount of success at your stage of your professional life. Again, that's really impressive. That's what INSEAD wants to see. So that would make the substance of impressive work experience or an impressive achievement. And we've discussed that a little bit. But there is also the presentation element. Remember I mentioned that early on in the webinar? You have to have the qualifications and you have to present those qualifications effectively. And we're going to touch on that for a moment now. I want to do a little experiment with you. So I'd like you to indicate which applies to you. And you can choose more than one option here. It should be on your window now. I work in finance or consulting. I have traveled outside my home country. I have volunteered during and or since college. How many of you can identify with those statements? Okay, with 71% having voted, I'm closing the polls and I'm sharing the polls. 42% of you have worked in finance or consulting. 83% have traveled outside your home country, and 80% have volunteered in some capacity during or since college. All right, so I'm going to hide that poll. And I'm going to share the next poll with you. Please indicate which of the following apply to you. I work for a financial forensic consulting firm. I went trekking in the Alps. Or I worked in Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria devastated the island. I volunteered, rather, in Puerto Rico. Now, I don't expect to have quite as many people responding to this one, but let's see what we can do here. How many? And again, you can identify with more than one. Okay. So let's see. Okay. I work for a financial forensic consulting firm. I went trekking in the Alps. I volunteered in Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria. All right. I'm going to close this poll. I'm going to share the results. Whoops. And here we go. 17% work for a financial forensic consulting firm. I actually think that's a little high. 30% went trekking in the Alps, and 3% volunteered in Puerto Rico after the hurricane. What's the difference between the two sets of questions? The Himalayas don't apply. I'm talking just the Alps. Sorry. What's the difference in the question window, please? The first set of questions, simplicity, specificity. You're right, Benjamin. And you're right, Abe. Specificity is the second group. The second group of questions was more precise. Right. Right. And what general versus specifics? Exactly, Will. What happens when you're specific or generic? What happens when you're specific? It makes you unique. Exactly. Exactly. You know, if you talk in generalities, there's going to be a lot of similarities between you. But if you talk in specifics, you stand out. You're different. You're more memorable. Exactly, Mirage. You're more, I don't know if it's more realistic, but definitely more distinctive. It makes it better to imagine for the admissions committee to get a feel for the actual experience rather than the holistic collection of words. It makes it easier for the admissions committees to know you as individuals, to remember you as individuals. I'm not sure that they're showing different traits, really. That wasn't my intention. But they do, the more specific you are in your writing, the more specifically you describe your experiences, your thought processes, the more of an individual you'll be, the less you'll blend into the applicant pool. Because specifics allow you to naturally stand out and to reveal yourself as a unique individual that you all truly are. Now, that's obviously one reason that distinctive contribution is so important. But the other reason is INSEAD says so. They want to see your ability to contribute. And that's the number one reason why distinctive contribution at INSEAD is important. They say so. The number two reason is that you have to understand that the admissions process at any elite MBA program is really a two-step process. One is evaluating those people who are qualified. And top programs like INSEAD always turn away qualified applicants. People they know can do the work, people who may fit in, but people who they're not convinced they're going to add something. So that ability to add, that tells the school that the second part of the process is building this diverse class of individuals who will reflect INSEAD's values and enrich the educational environment for everybody there. And this ability to contribute adds a tremendously subjective element to the admissions process that can make it very maddening for applicants. But the implication from the second part of this process, the selection part of the process, is that the school has no reason to admit someone who lacks something distinctive to contribute, either distinctive experience, perspective, or background, because they're not going to add, especially if they're just like everybody else on a superficial level. So it's not just about the numbers, and yes, they are important, but they're insufficient for acceptance. You need that ability to contribute, and presenting your qualifications in a distinctive way makes it easier for INSEAD and any top MBA program to see you as a distinctive human being who has this potential to contribute something distinctive. Now let's review the 4 strategic steps you need to think about before and while putting your application together. Number 1, demonstrate you can do the in-class work and excel. 2, have a clear, realistic idea why you want an MBA from INSEAD and how you intend to use it. 3, show you share INSEAD's values and meet its criteria. And 4, demonstrate that you'll be able to contribute to INSEAD's community and ultimately make the school proud. Now let's look at the specific elements of the INSEAD application. I already touched briefly on grades and transcripts as well as INSEAD's values. Let's look at the other elements. Okay, so this is INSEAD's CV template, and job and activity history are definitely part of the application. You must make the most of the CV to show impact and contribution, as well as the accomplishments that highlight leadership and multicultural fluency. Again, you want to focus on achievements and associate it with every skill that they have listed there. INSEAD either allows you to use a free-form CV or to download and use their CV template, which you can find on the INSEAD website. For INSEAD, the job history gives you almost no room to describe previous jobs and a fair amount of room to highlight your current job and your goals. Again, I'm going to say this over and over again, focus on achievements and not mere descriptions of responsibilities. Quantify your impact whenever possible, and of course, be succinct. INSEAD gives you relatively little space to discuss community service. That's just the way it is. You may be able to discuss a little bit in Essay 3 or in your video responses or in the interview. Keep in mind that involvement and activity are active. We're not talking about being a member or attending meetings or having a membership card in your wallet. We're talking about assuming responsibility, participation, and leadership. And you need to show that you have the goal here is to show that you have the leadership and teamwork and interpersonal skills that INSEAD seeks. So we're moving into the essay section, right? These are INSEAD's motivation essays, and INSEAD has 4 essays. Look at the 4 questions and think when you can see them better. Look at the 4 questions and think about how to weave your experiences into these different essays. You want to first think about the experiences you most want them to know about and that will best answer each of these questions, and we're going to go through them. Think about your application as a jigsaw puzzle. And these essays are some big pieces in the puzzle, but the idea is that the whole thing should fit together and present a portrait of you. So essay 1. Give a candid description of yourself, who you are as a person, stressing the personal characteristics you feel to be your strengths and weaknesses and the main factors which have influenced your personal development, giving examples when necessary. If it didn't strike you, I hope the way I read the question emphasized that this is about you as a person, a human being, an individual. And in terms of the question, obviously they want you to discuss your strengths and weaknesses. Weaknesses are sometimes the flip side of a strength. The example of this comes to mind. If any of you have read the book Unbroken, have any of you read it? Raise your hand if you read it. Yes, okay, Victoria. It's a fantastic book. And Louis Zamperini was an Olympic runner, bomber pilot, and POW during World War II. And the steely will and discipline that enabled him to become an Olympic runner at a very young age, survive 40 plus days on a raft in the Pacific, and ultimately a POW camp, caused him actually problems when he was home and even when he was a young teen. So it's a classic example of how a particular trait can be a positive and a negative, and you may have a situation like that you could bring in this essay, which would allow you to focus on your strengths a little bit more and I think deal with it succinctly. Other times you may not see it that way, and you might have strength and an unrelated weakness, and that's okay. I would have the weakness be from a little bit longer ago so that you can show that you've been dealing with it and working on it. And your success obviously should, and I want to emphasize here again, I emphasized it earlier, this is about your personal characteristics. It's not about how to build a better spreadsheet or program or niftier app. They're asking here mostly for interpersonal lessons, maybe even leadership lessons. So remember, as much as INSEAD is focused on the professional you, this question is focused on you as a human being. Okay, next question. Describe the achievement of which you are most proud and explain why. In addition, describe a situation where you failed. How did these experiences impact your relationship with others? And comment on what you learned. State the situation of which you are most proud and reveal the challenges you faced. Quantify the results if possible. And you want to show your ability to contribute and be part of a team here, and perhaps assume leadership responsibility if you did. But even if you were part of a team, what was your role? How did you contribute? What was your impact? And again, what did you learn from the situation, especially the interpersonal aspects of those situations? The failure can be a little while ago, and success should reflect the lessons that you learned. This is not about, I already gave you this. This is not about how to build a better spreadsheet. This is about interpersonal lessons. Again, that they're trying in these two questions to see you as a member of a community, as a member of a team. They're not just looking here for technical responses. And then essay 3, how are you enriched by significant extra-professional activities? So this is the one where you can talk about your extracurricular activities. And the key word here is enriched and significant. So think of your most significant non-professional commitments. What are you truly proud of that would be of interest given INSEAD's criteria and mission, and that hasn't been related in the boxes and other parts of the application? That shouldn't be too hard because, again, you don't have a lot of room in the boxes. It could be involvement in sports, the arts, travel, politics, ethnic group. It could be a challenge you faced in achieving what you have achieved personally. It could be a pivotal moment. It should be something that only you can write, and you should write it specifically for this application. It should not be a repeat or rehash of events discussed elsewhere in the application unless you can really go into a lot more depth. It also should not be a cut and paste of another school's essay. The key question is, how have these experiences enriched you? What do you enjoy? What have you learned? What did you get from the activity? And then there's the optional essay. Is there anything else that was not covered in your application that you would like to share with your admissions committee? So, there's always the adage, if you have nothing to say, don't say anything. Please don't provide a grand summary, a finale, or anything like that. However, if you have something you want INSEAD to know that's nowhere else in the application, use this and tell them. And most of you are accomplished individuals who will have something else that could add to your application and add to INSEAD's knowledge of you. So if there is something you want INSEAD to know, either about your leadership experiences, your multicultural experiences, your ability to contribute, tell them here and use it. Then you have INSEAD's video essay. We have 2 resources for you. One obviously is INSEAD, and I definitely recommend you go and view that. You want to see what is the purpose of the video essay? It's to see how you think on your feet and present yourself. It's basically an inexpensive way to meet you and assess your poise and presence. Realize that recruiters are using video, and I think INSEAD also wants to see where you're at kind of now, to see if they feel they can whip you into shape to meet a future recruiter. Some advice for your video. Make sure you have a quiet location. Your roommates are out, your dogs are definitely somewhere else, that the windows are closed, the ringer is turned off. When I do videos for Accepted, the first time I did a video, I was absolutely horrified. I'm less horrified now, but anyways. And I found that I looked very stern, and I don't think I normally look so stern. So I was forgetting to smile because, of course, the camera has no affect whatsoever. It doesn't smile back at me. It can't look annoyed. It can't look happy. It can't look sad. And I tended to be as unanimated as the camera was. I have since started putting up a smiley face whenever I do a video, unless somebody's there and can give me some encouragement and responsiveness. So I would recommend that you put up a sign, smile, or a smiley face, or something that's going to remind you to smile. Wear business or business casual attire. This is a professional school. Let's move on to the recommendations. INSEAD wants 2 recommendations. They prefer professional recommendations. At least one should come from your current employer. Preferably, it's not a must. The point of the recommendations is to assess your ability to work with and manage others, as well as your potential for senior management. And that's from INSEAD. So your recommenders should be able to assess those qualities, or they simply aren't appropriate. The main point of INSEAD's recommendation is to get a different perspective on your skills from people who can assess your strengths and weaknesses. Your recommendations can be submitted up anytime up until the deadline, so you have to make sure your recommenders get it in. My criteria, you want A, 2 people who know you well, and B, people who are willing and able to write a strong, positive letter of recommendation for you. If there is any hesitation for any reason, move on. We have for your recommenders 10 tips for recommenders. They can, you can send them the link, and it'll encourage them to write in specifics, be concrete, and quantify any accomplishments that they're praising you for. Don't be seduced by title in choosing recommenders. INSEAD isn't. Again, the key is not the title of the recommenders, but their ability to comment on your abilities and talents. What to expect in INSEAD's interview? Alumni interviews, or sometimes 2 interviews. They will be in or near your country, and you can expect a combination of traditional and behavioral questions. How should you prepare? Well, you should know how you intend to use the INSEAD experience and education to achieve your goals. Again, that was my second key, if you recall. You want to know what appeals to you about the INSEAD MBA specifically, not just any MBA. Be prepared to discuss multicultural and international experience and motivation for international business. I would also suggest that you review the GMAT Club and Beat the GMAT threads when you interview or before you interview, so that you can see if there's any interview feedback there. Read blogs with applicants who have interviewed. They can be helpful. And then review your application before you interview, because those are going to have the interviewer will not have seen your application, and those will have the experiences that you chose to highlight. Obviously, also be prepared to bring any experiences that have occurred that would be relevant, that you're proud of, to your interview and bring those out. The goal here is to explore your past to show fit with INSEAD and its criteria. So also review INSEAD's criteria, review your application, as I mentioned. And what I would suggest you do is jot down some achievements, and then on a spreadsheet basically, and then to the right, jot down the qualities that those experiences reveal. So if you're asked about leadership, so you'll know the experiences you want to talk about, and then also have INSEAD's valued, and have another sheet where you have INSEAD's valued criteria or qualities, and list experiences next to them that you can talk about. My point is, you want to be able to go either way. If you're asked, tell us about a time when you had a conflict with somebody, or you got some negative criticism, got some negative feedback, you can talk about how did you deal with it. You can talk about how you dealt with it, and also the qualities that you revealed in dealing with it, in addition to the fact that you can respond positively to criticism. At the same time, if you're asked, tell us about a time when you led a project, you should be able to respond quickly to that kind of a question, and this kind of preparation will help you go in either direction. Let's go back to your goal in submitting an application to INSEAD. You want to show that you belong at INSEAD. So we're going to have a little contest now in the question window. The first 3 to answer the next question get a copy of MBA Missions for Smarties, which is a book that I co-authored a few years ago with executive consultant Judy Gruen. You can get Kindle outside the United States. You can get a paperback or Kindle copy in the United States. The question is, what is INSEAD's motto? Okay, you got it. Mohammed, Tom, and Fabinav got it. The Business School for the World. Okay. Yeah, that was a pretty easy one. All right, so those are the 3 winners. Mohammed, Tom, and Fabinav. You got it? Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, so my assistant will email you, or you 3 people can email webinar@accepted.com, and they'll be in touch. If you want the Kindle, just send your email address to webinar@accepted.com. And it's Mohammed, Tom, and Fabinav. Congratulations. And most of you got the answer. You're welcome. Okay, let's move on. Let's review the 4 ways to show you belong in INSEAD. Provide evidence you can do the work, the academic credentials that show you have that academic capacity. Have a realistic goal that requires an INSEAD MBA. Show that you meet INSEAD's criteria and share its values. And 4, demonstrate that you're able to contribute distinctively to class discussions and teamwork, the school's community, and ultimately make the school proud to have you as a member of their alumni society. Last word of advice. Actually, it's not the last one, but it's getting there. The admissions committee readers are sharp, intelligent professionals. Don't try to trick, fake, or fool. The best presentation of you is an authentic reflection of your achievements and dreams, keeping in mind the 4 keys to acceptance at INSEAD. In Virginia Fujia's words during the podcast interview we had with her, be yourself. Now, I'd like you to raise your hand if you now understand that all 4 elements of my framework are important to a successful MBA application at INSEAD. Please raise your hands if you got that, because that's my big goal for the day. Wonderful. Okay. Anybody else understand that now? Keep your hands up. Don't put them down yet. Okay, we're well over 50%. Wonderful. Thank you. That's really the main point you should take away. Acceptance is about all 4 parts of the framework because you need them in your application, not just 1, not just 3 out of the 4, because to get accepted, you need to show that you both belong at INSEAD, that's parts 1 through 3 of my framework, and stand out in the applicant pool. And that's what we work with our clients constantly. Now, you've learned in this webinar a comprehensive approach to crafting a successful MBA application for INSEAD. You've seen why each element is important and also gotten a few general tips on how to include them. What you need now, however, is the how applied to your individual circumstances. For that, you need to get accepted and work with one of our outstanding consultants. We can guide you in showing that you both belong at INSEAD or whatever MBA programs you're aiming for, and stand out in the applicant pool. We can mentor you in creating an application that as a whole spotlights your strengths and mitigates your weaknesses. That really accomplishes everything we've discussed here today. Here's what you get at Accepted. When you work with Accepted, you get access to expertise and experience in the MBA admissions process, and specifically the INSEAD MBA admissions process. You get options so that if you only need a little help with one element of the application, that's what you'll get. If you are starting from scratch and want comprehensive assistance, like our MBA application package, that's what you get. You get one dedicated advisor who becomes expert in your story and helping you present it. You get candor and objectivity combined with decades of experience in MBA admissions. You get basically experience, expertise, and objectivity to optimize your application. Now, some may say Accepted is expensive, and we're definitely not a cheap service because of the quality of our staff. However, there are also expensive risks associated with not using Accepted. Reapplication can easily cost a couple $1,000s. One additional year of pre-MBA earnings can cost in the 5 figures in dollars. One additional year of a job you dislike if you are in that position. And then there's the potential that you could have gotten into a better program with lifelong higher earnings and network. That can cost you, well, I'll let you figure that out. Every year we work with applicants who talked to us a year earlier and decided after taking the do-it-yourself approach and getting rejected to work with us. They would have been better off working with us initially, and so would you. But enough from me. What do accepted applicants say? Today I finished working with Michelle on all essays for INSEAD, and overall I can simply say that her support was perfect. Or the next one, I owe my acceptance to Accepted. They helped me in refining my essays. This client worked with Jennifer Bloom and Cindy Tokumitsu. Here's what I'd like you to do after the Q&A. Take these steps to work with an accepted MBA admissions consultant and have the kind of experience and success that these clients have had. It's now February, as you all know. You can still work on your INSEAD application with an accepted consultant towards its March deadlines for either the September 2018 or January 2019 intakes. And over, I think it was 90% of you, no, it was 74% of you, 73% of you are planning to apply to those 2 intakes. Contact us ASAP, and we'd be happy to help you from scratch or review and edit your essays. Allow us to guide you so that you present all 4 parts of this critical framework that I discussed today and show that you both belong at INSEAD and are a standout in the applicant pool. And remember, we're not just talking, as I said at the very, very beginning, and you all agreed. You're here today not just to get into INSEAD or even to get an MBA. You're here because getting into INSEAD, getting that MBA will enhance your career for the rest of your life. Now, getting the kind of comprehensive guidance from an experienced MBA admissions expert is easily worth the full cost of the package. However, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to make it even more worth your while. $300 off any MBA application package, our comprehensive flight rate option that is the perfect match for the approach I've recommended today. But before you leave to select the service that's right for you, let's have that Q&A that I promised you. All right, so let me get to the questions. Rahul asks, I haven't worked or traveled out of my home country. However, I am working on Indo-US and Indo-Russian power projects. Is that strong international experience and motivation? It's not the strongest, Rahul. I think it will depend a little bit on what you say about that experience. What has been your experience? Are you working with Americans on the Indo-US project? Are you working with Russians on the Indo-Russian project? Are you adapting to different cultural norms in each case, because then you'll be able to talk intelligently about multicultural experience. In other words, it's not just having that experience, it's also what you say about it and the lessons you learn and how you portray it and that kind of thing. And that's something that we work with clients on. But thank you for the excellent question. Let's see, what else do we have here? Anka asks, is this presentation also applicable to the MBA program? The 4 keys are definitely applicable to the MBA program. The discussion of international motivation, definitely applicable. There are other elements to the MBA, and the screenshots may not be applicable, that are critical. One real important element of the MBA program that's not present in the full-time is just how you're going to handle part-time MBA on top of your work schedule. And obviously that is not relevant for the full-time, but thank you. For question 3, how far back looking should you aim for? How many years? I certainly wouldn't go back more than 5 years. If you're talking about question 3 is the most significant community experience that enriched you. I would ideally say, let me get the exact wording, I'll look it up. I would ideally say you want it to be in the last 2 to 3 years, because if something really enriched you and you never did it again, it'd be, unless there was some physical reason why you couldn't, I'd be really suspicious of the response. So yeah, your most significant extra-professional activity happened, 10 years ago, and you haven't done anything similar since. I would say, well, it doesn't sound like it enriched you very much because you haven't done it again or you haven't done anything related. So, that would be kind of the issue with going too far back. If you go back a couple of years, obviously, that would make more sense. So, the details count there. Okay? But thank you for the question. Good question. What else do we have here? How can Accepted help me? I'm through with my essays and I got an interview invite already. Yali, we provide mock interview prep. So congratulations on getting the interview invitation. And thanks for the question, but we can definitely provide a mock interview for you. And the ability to have a dress rehearsal when nobody's accepting or rejecting you can be really, really beneficial. Abe asks, how can applicants from countries which see a lot of applications differentiate themselves? Well, that's something that we work with clients a lot on. We have a lot of clients. I'm guessing from your name that you're from India. We have a lot of clients from India. And we work with them on very hard, actually, on individuating. And that involves some of what I did in that little thought experiment earlier, focusing on the specifics of their experiences and also highlighting their reaction to those experiences, their analysis of those experiences. Because it's not only what you've done, it's also what you take away and your perspective that helps to individuate you. I hope that answered your question. It is harder, though. Let's see what else we have here. Neha asks, when should you start preparing for your application package for INSEAD? How many years? Well, the actual application, filling out the form and the essays, assuming you already have your GMAT score, I think if you give it a couple of months, that's really plenty of time, and you can do that, very intelligently and methodically, without feeling undue pressure if you start a couple of months before you plan to apply. In terms of the larger application process, accruing the grades, the test scores, the experience, the perspective that INSEAD is looking for, that that can go back a decade. It can go back to when you started college. So I'm not sure that I'm answering your question correctly, but that's be my best answer fully. Christina asks, what is the cost of your MBA admissions package? It varies depending on how many schools you're applying to. But I don't want to quote any prices incorrectly. Pretty sure it's $42.50, but I'm going to look it up real fast just to make sure. One school application package is $42.50, and then it goes up from there, but at a smaller cost per school for each additional application. Yeah, $42.50 for the first one. You would get $300 off, so it would be $39.50 if you use the coupon code. Again, it's flat rate and no time-based charges. Okay, how can Exhibit help applicants coming from an engineering technical background? We do it all the time. It's one of our biggest professional cohorts, really. We would work with you to emphasize your achievements, highlight your strengths, mitigate your weaknesses, and really look at what is your competitive advantage as an applicant to INSEAD. Obviously, we'll look at your international exposure, multicultural experience. We'll look at how you've contributed on the job and off the job, and we'll advise you in terms of what to include in your essays, how to make the most of your CV or resume. If you have questions on letter of recommendation choice, recommender choice, we help you with that. We edit your essays, we edit your resume, we prep you for interviews. It's all included in the package, or you can purchase it separately. Did I answer your question, Daniel? I mean, it's hard, but we're not just going to focus on your engineering technical background. We're going to try and bring out the kind of interpersonal and leadership skills that INSEAD is looking for, whether it's on the job or off. Multicultural leadership and work experience with teammates in professional baseball. How should I approach detailing these experiences? Quantifying these experiences will be challenging. It might be that for those kinds of experiences, an anecdotal approach and highlighting them in your essays would be the best approach. Again, you quantify when possible. And if it's not possible, then you have to take a more qualitative approach. That would be, again, without knowing details, I'm a little bit of a disadvantage, but an anecdotal approach might work far better in stories. Okay, let's see what else we have. We're going over. Should I continue, or you want me to end it? Continue asking questions? Raise your hand if you want me to continue answering questions. You're getting tired. I can go a few more minutes. Okay. All right, do a couple more. Lavon asks, are your advisors INSEAD specific or INSEAD focused? We would definitely refer you to somebody with INSEAD experience or knowledge. We're not going to refer you to somebody who doesn't know anything about the school. We have a lot of people who have INSEAD experience in terms of helping clients get accepted to INSEAD. Mayank asks, I don't think I have any impactful thing. I heard the audience raising funds or started startups. But how can a software engineer working in a big multinational corporation with no international experience show such qualities? Is there still a chance for such a candidate? Mayank, I think if you truly have no achievements, which I kind of doubt, and no international exposure, then, and I'm assuming you have the grades because you haven't mentioned anything about that. I think what I would do, and you want to go to INSEAD, then I think you have a couple of options. One is choose a different school because INSEAD will want to see some impact, and they're very clear about that, and they clearly want to see international exposure. And obviously you have to know 2 languages just to get into INSEAD and be willing to learn a third. So you can either choose a different school, or you can plan to get the experience and the exposure that INSEAD is looking for. Again, I suspect you have done something of impact, but the international exposure or the multicultural fluency is something that INSEAD is going to want, and that can be acquired. So maybe you don't want to apply then for 2019, or maybe you're going to try and apply to a different round. You can either travel outside your home country to get some exposure and experience. You can try and work on some kind of multicultural outreach in your home country. I'm going to guess it's India from your name, but obviously I don't know it. Or you can try and get a job, assume a role where you're interacting with people outside your home country in the company that you work for. But my point here is, if you don't have the criteria now, try and change things so that you will have the criteria, or change the schools you're aiming for. If I'm a mature candidate, meaning 30 in 2 weeks, 8.5 years work experience, should I rush for round 4 intake or apply round 1 to January intake? This is from Alana. You are, for INSEAD, you're not really, quote unquote, at 30 a mature candidate. They have 5 years of experience, but they trend a little older. 30 is not going to get anybody excited. You do have more than the usual amount of work experience. I wouldn't rush. If you can submit a good application, a good strong application for round 4, then that's what I would do. And if you can't submit a really good, well done application, then I would wait till next year and submit a really solid one. We actually just had a webinar a couple of weeks ago. Should I apply round 3/4, or should I wait till next year? And you may want to look at that. Rachel, can you chat out the URL for that? All right. Now, I want to thank you for your time, your attention, your questions, your answers. But I have a final thought and story, and we really are. I'm really talking final at this point. Raj, not his real name, really wanted to go to INSEAD, but he had an average GMAT score and a fairly typical profile in terms of his work experience. When he reached out for help, he wrote, quote, "I need help in structuring, drafting, and further refining my essays for multiple B schools." After his acceptance to INSEAD, he had this to say. Got the call from INSEAD today. We'll be joining the France campus. I cannot describe in words how grateful I am for your support, help, and guidance through the application procedure. This would not have been possible without you, and thanks a lot for bearing with me. I believe this was Jennifer Bloom's client. Now, you're at a crossroads now. You can take the do-it-yourself approach to your application and professional future, or you can work with professionals to optimize your application. The clients I've quoted today invested in their future and are now either INSEAD alumni or students. Follow their path to application and professional success.